Hello, it's episode 335. Hey, Mark. Ow. Bucurel. Bucurel. Matt Bucerel, what's up?
Hey, buddy. How are you, man? It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Jangers and wall hangers.
Absolutely.
And you're in the pro wrestling business now. You're in the independent pro wrestling business. So much has changed, and I had nothing to do with that.
No.
You independently of me kind of backdoored your way into the pro wrestling industry.
Man,
So far, what is your main idea?
I've been so looking forward to this podcast because you do a lot different of a podcast than I do, which is a lot more honest, you know. And after doing a podcast with you, that's where Tales of the Hunted came from with Frank and the Matt and Cat show, because I was like, you know what? I just want to be me. Cory showed me I don't have to put on, I can make my jokes, but I can just be me in front of the mic. So
like Frank and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when he has the toe knife and he's like, I'm not putting on airs for anybody. Oh, botched it.
It's one of those things that podcasting just really evolved since the last time we were together. You know, Tales of the Triforce rather just kind of dissolved, put on, hold. Once we started doing the Great Media Comic-Con, Chris has stepped down from that. So now we have a whole bunch of different opportunities since we've just evolved our podcast, with Lug Nuts going on 5 years this December. The 6-year Projangers and Wall Hangers anniversary, which we're going to have an event. I'm working with Jill. We're going to have a 6-year anniversary. We're going to have a whole lot of events, which I've been cooking up, which we'll talk about. But ultimately, I'm going to tie it back to you, because doing this podcast with you showed me, I forget what I said. I think I said something that I was trying to make a tagline. Like, I'm just a nerdy guy from Delco trying to do good. And you're like, can you do me a favor and don't put yourself down like that? And I'm like, damn. All right.
You minimalized yourself, mister. You're capable of so much.
Now you sound like Jill. But it's a turn of events, because a year ago I was doing Tales. I was towards the I was doing Lug Nuts, and I was at an auto body shop as the parts guy, sweating my ass off in their parts shed. And towards the beginning of this year, a friend of mine, Michael Florio, who I just did Silly Little Podcast with, he came to me in like January, and he was like, hey man, you
guys were funny. You guys were really funny together. You had a good chemistry.
You
had me rolling on the Florio.
Oh man, that's great. But
but I really, seriously, I was listening to it and I was laughing. You guys were cracking me up.
I mean, that's the beauty of podcasting, because it came to me after we podcasted a couple times on Tales of the Hunted, and we did, Hit Points and Half Measures, our Dungeons and Dragons podcast, which I still have 2 episodes to do, but I got to make sense because I had a hard drive crap out on me in the middle. So I got to do a recap to put the boat back on there, but all the
hard reset.
Dungeons and Dragons is a tough one to schedule out, but when we get it going, I mean, I was new to it. There are 2 episodes up on our YouTube, which don't judge me for my choices in the second episode. Okay. I did my best as a new Dungeons and Dragons guy who was also trying to focus on producing a podcast and was not paying attention is my excuse. I used a frostbite spell on an ice Wendigo, so it didn't go well.
I don't know what that means.
There's always surprises around every door.
any reference that you throw at me with Dungeons and Dragons, I'm gonna straight up let it die.
It's fine. It's fine because
you see, let it die. I acted like they were dice. You see,
we can let that die because I was trying to steer it back onto a course. But so from a year ago, I was sitting in a parts shed, and the beginning of this year, Michael got me into a really great opportunity. He said, "I want your company to acquire my podcast company because I have this great opportunity with the Heroic Awards, which it was their first year, and they were at C2E2, the second biggest Comic-Con in the country. And they were an indie comic award show by Indie Comic Awards creators. And they were some of the best. There were over 200 judges, or I'm sorry, 100 judges, over 200 contestants. It was massive. I got the absolute pleasure from this opportunity to do the intro video as well as the category videos. So best colors, that video's playing. It's my video, bud. It was a gauntlet because Chris had a lot of stuff with wrestling. He had WrestleMania. He had a lot of things going on. And then I had my full-time job as a parts guy on top of fitting in, making the graphics for an award show. And crunch time came down to it. We got it done. They loved it. They used it. They want us back next year for Imagine Indie Arts and Entertainment Expo. I can't wait to go. It's in St. Louis. They're forming their own thing, which is just everything indie, music, a whole collage of absolute indie content. So that was the start of this year. And I thought, man, that's it. That and the podcasts. I podcast with Mark McKenna. I had so many great friends come on and so many great, amazing, guests out of this. Chris Domenico of Delco, the movie director. Turns out we were in Cub Scouts together. How crazy is that? You know what I mean?
crazy.
Chris came to me and said, hey, man, because he's been always trying to get me to come to these wrestling events. And I was just standing there with my thumbs in my pockets. And I was like, I could be editing a podcast or podcasting right now. So once he was like, hey, I got you a paid gig. I was like, hey, I'm all ears. And I haven't turned back. I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid. SmackDown, Raw era. I think we might have even talked about this last time because you're an amazing, amazing wrestler. As soon as I see you you walk in the door, it's like there's certain wrestlers I see walk in the door and I'm like, this is going to be an amazing show.
Well, there's
your music, and I'm like, oh yes.
There's a part of the presentation of professional wrestling that you're not going to find on the independent circuit very much. I mean, I hope to rub that off and give some of that to the talents that I work with. I hope to phrasing. Okay, I hope to
that off on people.
Pass that to talents and get them closer to the level that I perform on. Mm-hmm. But there's a presentation that isn't just the stuff you do in the ring. There's a presentation that just isn't just the stuff you do on the microphone. There is a presentation to it that I think you're gonna find a hard time finding that presentation in a lot of the independent wrestling locker rooms that you find yourself in. Not to disparage the rest of the business, but experience is the best teacher, and I've got more of it than most.
Yeah, you do. And that's what it shows on stage when I see these wrestlers who clearly have that. They see me as the cameraman and they know, oh, you're my guy. I want to hot. And, sometimes I have the ref get out of my way. I'm just saying that as a blanket statement, not to one ref in general. Just, hey, I'm the guy holding the stick. Can you get out of my way, please? Thank you. I'm here for a reason.
But as a camera guy, I know this because of good friends that I've had that have been camera guys in the wrestling business. That fans going, "You get out of my way!" Fans doing that is just as frustrating as the ref being right in your way.
I felt so bad. like it was a cage match, I think, for Super Crazy or one of the other ones we do down there in Super Crazy's building. And it was a cage match. And I had 2 spots because Chris had the other 2 spots where the gap in the cage was. And I had to try to make myself skinny. And that's the best I could do. And the woman's like, oh, thank God I got this seat. Like, damn, you paid front row to look at my ass. Like, I'm sorry. It's non-existent. So it's equally disappointing for both of us, sweetheart. I'm so sorry.
Hey, that's part of the parentheses at the bottom of the flyer or a ticket that you buy to a wrestling show where it says card subject to change. Not just the card itself, but parts of it where there might be a camera guy in your way. There might be some things aren't going to go exactly the way you think they're going to go.
Oh man, the bank. Went down to the Bank Bar in Gloucester City. And there was a live event down there for Super Crazy. And it was me and Brian Schwarker. We were down there. I did some videography for him, and it was Primal Fear. They absolutely stole that show. They drew the match out into the crowd, involved the dunk tank that was there. They involved the whole area. It was so
maybe on Gabe's Twitter. I think I saw it.
Dude, I was there and I was like on the other side of the ring and I was like, no, I must capture this. And it's almost like a videographer super sense. You're like, bah, bah, bah. And you know, I have to capture this. It was like when we were doing SPO's last event, they're doing one this upcoming Saturday. When Berks County Batman. It was a Batman. B.O.B. Batman of I can't remember. I know so many Batmans now. I know Bucks County Batman. I know Delco Batman, Delco Spider-Man. Who knew I would be forming a fucking Justice League? But it's happening. You know, it's just there's a lot of things podcasting that was happening. And I got to a certain point after. It
feels like it's the wrong plural to say I know Batmans. Like
it is the wrong plural. Like Batman, Batman's. Like, how about you, Mr. Batman's? You know, it seems kind of suggestive there. So I don't know, but when you know multiple superheroes, I'll put it that way, your inbox and your notifications get pretty cool when you're like, Batman like this notification. Spider-Man love this. You're like, oh, I'm so loved by superheroes. It's cool, man. And then I come to a point after Heroic Awards when I'm working in that part shed and I realized how much a company was paying to be a sponsor for that award show. And because of my editing work, I got Perjangers and Wall Hangers as a sponsor for the Heroic Awards in the beginning of this year. And I'm going through my job and I'm like, I looked up like the Google thing, like how much does editing pay an hour? And it's like $50 an hour. And I'm like, 3 hours I've been here at work. I could have edited, done something else creative, like that I love, instead of this guaranteed paycheck.
Right.
And it's weird
spending time on something to make just the amount, the bare minimum amount, and using that time that you could be using towards something more valuable and something that feeds your spirit and like fills up your heart. Like
it's something that broke in me right now.
Agonizing. Yeah, dude, I'm there. I've been there. I've been there for a long, long time.
I just had to bet on myself because I've worked at car dealerships where I'm just making money for this guy to go take another vacation to a tropical island. I've worked at the shady shops and all over the automotive industry, and I got so tired of it. I got tired of all the shady backhanded deals and this is just the way business works. And I was like, you know what? Why doesn't business work like that for me? Why can't I just bet on myself? And then shortly after that, I got fired and I got a severance, but my last boss was like, look, you just lost your passion. And that's where the course of events led me. And I was like, I can't argue with you. You're right. I did completely. And I think that, yeah, you saw it too, huh?
Mhm.
And it was probably the best thing in my life that he fired me, because shortly after that, I met Jill, and I was just going to be a photographer on her book.
Mhm.
We had an amazing shot with this guy with long hair at a barn.
Sounds gay.
I tell you, we got a bunch of shots with him, and I'm eventually going to have that as like a special extended shot coverage once we do get her book done.
Sure.
But she just doesn't stop, man. She got me to one day, I was talking to her on the phone, and I was like, "Hey, man, we should," because I would give her book page ideas. I'd sketch something down, and I'd be like, "Well, what about
Well,
this?"
like also, let's consider the source. As of 2 days ago, you are you have a published work of art, a book, a photography book.
Yes.
So to have you counsel somebody on what pages should be in their book, it only truly makes sense.
She saw the raw. She has this eye, just like my business partner Chris Bristow. They have this. You remember Yu-Gi-Oh? Like the all-seeing eye. Like they have this all-seeing eye to where they can pick out talent, and they like, no, you.
I was thinking you're talking about Wiley Burp from Five Goes West. The lazy eye.
Damn, I forgot about Five Goes West. That's a good pull.
Give him the old lazy eye.
But that's where meeting Jill led to, man. A shot with you in a barn. And then after that, hey, why don't we try to have a portion of your book sales go to charity? And then she was like, well, what kind of charity would you want to donate it to? And I said, well, suicide prevention and awareness. And then it turned into me forming my own charity foundation, which I did, the Timothy J. Bucurel Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And we have our first event, party at the park in Schlegel Park, York, Pennsylvania. We have a
What's
whole
the name of
bunch
the park?
Slagel.
Schlegel.
Schlegel. It's kind of it's not quite legal, but it's kind of okay. So it's Schlegel. That's probably not that's probably not the PR they want for the park, but it's a beautiful park. It is a beautiful park. We picked the perfect place off of Google Maps, and we drove there. And when we drove there, York already said, "Hey, man, what about a book? You should do a book for York." And I was like, "Absolutely." And then we had a nice shot, but I didn't want to do anything with the shots of the park that I took. And then a couple days after we shot in York, we shot in media, and media immediately was the next place for the next event. Almost immediately. I love what you did there. But they were almost it was like one after the other. It was like, all right, well, I already have another event in December.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in media. State Street Pub. They have a place outside. We're gonna have a nice little, hot chocolate. We'll have vendors, a nice place to go. And
hot chocolate. Wait, when is this? In October, you said?
December 14th.
December.
So we have September 7th for Schlegel Park, and then State Street Pub in their parking lot across from them. That is going to be December 14th. And
I was gonna say it's hot as heck outside. You don't want no hot chocolate right now. It's
no, not now. No. Maybe iced chocolate.
Maybe chocolate. Maybe chocolate milk.
There you go.
Or cold chocolate.
There you go. Ice pops.
Chocolate milk might make you get all rumbly and the tumbly. It might make you feel all sore.
A little bit, yeah. Especially in this heat, though, you got to watch out for that. But
it's so hot. Milk was a bad choice.
You should have let it curdle. But that's where the book came from. My shots in media and York. York was a crazy shot because we were walking around town. All right, she's doing her manager thing, trying to get her favorites work and stuff like that. And she was automatically on the phone at one point, and I was somebody came up and talked to me because I had a camera, and they were like, "Hey, where do I get a picture appraised?" And I was like, anybody can buy these, right? It's not like, all right, I was wearing my fedora and I still have the devil goatee. So, I mean, I maybe fit.
You were walking around taking pictures.
Yeah,
was I fedora on? You were being Fedora the Explorer.
Fedora the Explorer. She's laughing as hell. That is great. That is probably the best name I have ever heard. That's the best fedora name, because the only other one I heard was from Katerina Thermascara, my former podcast partner, Kat. She called me her fedorable fox.
Oh,
fedorable.
That's just the bee's knees right there.
Ain't it? That's one of the best compliments you can get. But that's where it happened. And then when I was getting questioned by the people, they were asked about being appraising random pictures. Jill told me, no, we have a meeting. Okay. Run across the street, this gigantic hotel Yorktown. And it's spelled town with an E at the end. So they're fancy.
Classy.
We walk in there, and there's this there's these two women waiting for us, and she won't tell me anything when I'm walking up there. Luckily, I got a picture of the sign on the outside before I went up, but we went all the way up to the penthouse of this hotel with this woman, and I was able to go next to the wall, take my pictures of the entire York skyline from the penthouse. And that's where the cover of the book comes in. For Picture Perfect Small Towns, York and Media, PA. It was right at the top of the Hotel Yorktown. I saw a really great, because they have a lot of trees in York on their state streets. They have a lot of sculptures, like artistic sculptures and benches and graffiti pieces and amazing architecture that you're going to want to look at, because some of it just looks so revolutionary in style and just classic in feeling. So that's the feeling and tone I wanted to bring off of this book. And Jill, it's kind of jaded, because she's like, oh my God, she loves every single picture I do, But then when I hear other people like, yo, this is a really good picture, I'm like, all right, I can't deny it anymore. Like, modesty only goes to a certain level before it gets annoying.
Yeah, that's like, of course you think I'm handsome. You're my mom. You have to say that. That's kind of like the same feel to the whole thing.
Yeah, hopefully your mom doesn't say like, oh, you are god-awfully ugly.
Yeah, my mom's like, you know what? If you weren't so ugly, you'd be attractive. My mom's never said that.
But it's weird, this whole cascade of events, because I have a charity now. I have a podcast that I've been doing with my brother, Lugnuts, for going on 5 years. December 31st, 2019 was the very first episode of Lugnuts. And it was a full year after we formed, I think year and a half after we formed Projangers. So it's been a long road, but Lugnuts through Jill, we have 2 live performances going on. We are live at the Bar Bank in Gloucester City this Thursday. You will hear my sexy voice coming out of these microphones, as well as my brother doing a very special Lugnuts. We have Aleem Leggett, the creator of Diary of Sweet Pea. He's going to be there doing signings of his book. And there's going to be, I've heard, a couple different wrestlers that are going to be in the crowd at this bar. And everybody's going to get luggy and nutty. We're going to hear all about the automotive from around the world. So that's one of the best parts of news, is that, all right, we're at the Bar Bank, but then in Pottstown, I'm gonna move my earphone here so my manager can remind me what the name of the December event was. It was the Chasing Dreams. What did I tell you about Dreams? Car cruising through Pottstown. Which they are a car show that go cruises. Almost the name. They cruise through America, North America,
So,
and
so that's a pretty accurate name for car cruising through, huh?
it's going to be like a couple hundred cars from what I understand there. And then there's a bar there that's going to be playing Lugnuts podcast there. Before the event on as well as the day of the event, we're going there live, and it's one of the first. We are working on a live podcast with King of Prussia. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of live podcasts, and you are one of the first people that I want to include in there. And it's always a blast when we podcast. And how
It'll be
about live Cory evolving with Cory Kastle live in the center square of King of Prussia Mall?
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. The thing is, I always have wanted to take this into a live podcasting version, and I've recorded a few live ones, but they're at open mics, and you could tell that everybody's there is not really there for it, and they don't really care.
That's
So
where
that's
I think if you come out to the bank, you'll see that people are behind podcasting. Like, you find your favorite podcasters and you follow them. And like when you go on a podcast, like, when we cross promote this podcast in and of itself, it's the title of your podcast is very, very accurate because it's fitting with life as you are going through and doing podcasting. You're evolving with the times, and that's a lot like what I've been forced to do because I can't do anything else. I already have my second book.
You've been evolving this whole time, and you didn't know it.
I didn't.
Now you're just a little bit more conscious of it.
I couldn't take it anymore. So I got the first book out, but my second book I'm working on is on Maryland. I also have another book that I'm going to be working on with AAW. So I'm not stopping. You're going to see a lot more photography. I got a whole bunch of other stuff in my back burner that I'm not even willing to talk about yet. It's just a whole bunch, at least on podcast. I'll tell you afterwards because she's amazing. But it's one of those things that when you have someone believe in you as much as like she does, as much as Chris does, and these opportunities start to come out in front of you, it's not lost on me that I only got here because everyone else made me great. They helped me see my potential that I could make a book. And that's one of the things that I'm most proud of. When I look at my notification feed, all my friends are just like, hey, man, this is awesome. Everybody's sharing it out. Everybody wants to be involved. So that's one of the things that I think is very inspiring from my story, from podcasting over 11 years, content creating over 11 years, my first book and two more in the hopper. And to have the kind of response that I've already had so far is amazing. I can't wait to see where it goes. The bank bar is going to be the first signing. I will sign copies if you bought them. And as well as on October, the car shows and any other live places, I'll sign it. You see me in Giant, just have a pen. I'll sign it. I don't care.
So did you get them published and printed independently, or you did through Amazon?
Kindle Direct Publishing, and it's not a bad deal. It's a lot better. Like if you were to go through like a distributor and publisher and say go to like Barnes and Noble, you're not making a lot of money on that book.
Right.
To where you're making more by even just doing starting out with a paperback book, and then eventually when I already have my second one out. All right, I'm working on the second one. Let's get out the ebook. Now I have an ebook of that first book. Now I have my paperback of the second book, and I'm not skimping on the size. It's 8.5 by 11. It's a full page of paper. You're getting the full resolution of the shot, full, highest,
Did they decide on the price,
highest
or did
page
you
quality.
decide on the price?
Well, they have choices on like ink quality and page quality. I went with highest on both.
Okay.
Because it didn't matter in the end.
Right.
It's a picture book, and that is what I like about it, because everybody's going to be able to look at those pictures and find something different that they like about it.
It looks like a great coffee table book.
Exactly. That's exactly where Jill got the idea in my head.
From your coffee table.
To have that coffee table and be like, oh, what's this book? You got somebody, oh, I'm waiting for dinner. You invite them over for dinner. They're waiting. Oh, what's this book? Picture Perfect Towns. Okay. She's working on getting me into book fairs and libraries across
Scholastic Book Fair. The Scholastic Book Fair.
They called me shortly after I published the book yesterday. I got a phone call, and they were like, well, how do we what's the best method of contacting you? I gave them my number, and I was like, wait, that's not right. Talk to Jill. Talk to Jill. She does the best. So, and now, if I can get it out into libraries and book fairs and stuff like that, that's something that's actually, it's taking an art to another level that a nerdy guy from Delco never thought he could get on the first Evolving with Cory Kastle. And now just embracing my passion has brought me here. All the accolades and accomplishments, I feel like are armor now, from looking at that last podcast and saying, nah, man, I got so much more, development from them, looking back at that person.
Man, I wish I would have listened to that episode this week.
Well, I listened on my journey out to one of my out to two of our shoots. We listened to Jill and I listened to your first podcast you did with your future wife.
How do you feel about that?
I am not insulted. She didn't like my Disney theme for the videos I have planned for you guys. Like, I figured you Aladdin, her Elsa, do an interview. It's just dress how you want. It's fine. The artist apparently, a great idea can just be just left on the sides. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm not going to do what everyone thinks I'm going to do and just flip out, man.
I was a little hurt, but honestly, it's her day. So
you were hurt butt. You were hurt butt.
Until I was like, you know what? I'm not the bride.
Right. I had this bit that I was my last relationship that I just got out of it, and I got up on stage and I was like, I just got out of a relationship with a girl who, like, what is it called when, like, a girl's about to get married and they start treating everybody in like a real shallow, stinky way. What is that called? And they're like, Bridezilla. I'm like, she's like that, but just on a regular basis. We weren't ever going to get married, but she just was one of those, but in life.
Just looking to be the Bridezilla, just keeping that
Bridezilla.
Yeah. But there's just a lot of
different, that's what I mean.
A lot of different things when you're not that kind of person, and you keep that open mind. You can see a lot of different opportunities that aren't there before. It's just it's so crazy.
The common theme that you've seen so far now. Let's say you've probably shot about like 10 shows in wrestling. Maybe less than 10 shows, or have attended about.
It's probably around 10. That I've
around 10, 10 independent wrestling events. The common underlining theme for all performers who have come into the wrestling business. What have you noticed the most?
An underlying theme.
Like, what's there? If you're like, oh yeah, that person's totally a pro wrestling person. What is the thing that goes off in your head? Then you're like, yes, that person's just like every other person.
Okay, so it's more of
they share this commonality.
yeah. It's a good question. A common theme I would say would be a knack for make believe. You have to be able to like there was a sales technique that you would do in the card industry to where somebody would be the salesman and the other person would be the customer, that play on words and being able
Like
to
a mock. Mm-hmm.
and improv is very important in wrestling, especially independent wrestling, because you don't
In independent wrestling, they need to add an E at the end of it, so it's improve, because it needs to improve quite a bit.
Because I've seen in shows to where now I could see, oh, he messed up there and they had to course correct and they had to do a little dance to get where they wanted. And, you know, hearing the minor little, wow, you know, it was supposed to go like this. And after the match, that kind of stuff is like, you know what? Improv is really important. And also teamwork, understanding I'm going to lose. I'm going to have my days I win. I'm going to have my days I have fun. And, you know, there's a lot of fun and pretending and make believe in wrestling that I think a lot of wrestlers, especially the best ones, they not only have the ability to have that fun, they also have an innate ability to realize their character in the space they're at, no matter what event. They have their character, and it's like an RPG. They are that character, and they are interacting wherever they are, having that innate ability to just turn off yourself and go to your character. However you do that, I find a lot of like some people, they will just like Tony Yolanda. He just dials himself up to 11 Spinal Tap wise. It's something that for different people do different things. You're very much just goofy Cory Kastle, and it's so awesome. And that's what
I don't feel like I do a lot of goofy stuff out there, but
dude, the last match I saw you with the rock, paper, scissors.
I didn't feel like that. That wasn't, I mean,
it's goofy, but it's also brilliant.
Yeah, I don't feel like I mean, that was also right off the top of our heads. That wasn't something we talked about ever doing before. We just
it's something
did it right there, right.
It's goofy, but it's good enough in the moment that it throws everybody off. So it releases expectations for the match. That's why, as a comedy fan, I love that, because you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Rock, paper, scissors. And they're both on board. Like, let's go. Because they all are still the characters and they have that competitive mentality in their minds. So it's interesting, especially because I do want to write my own comic book as well as, you know, all the other picture books that I'm doing. I do want to make a graphic novel of pictures and put it in a book. I have an idea for that, but that's also what it itches that part of my mind in wrestling, is to where I see these amazing characters that all these guys have had so much time to develop and have fun with and grow. So it's a nice thing to have in front of you develop, so that you can kind of watch and see how you can apply that to what you're doing. Because, okay, well, he had to course correct here. So you got to stay light on your feet. You have to have multiple different options. How can I have a plan B to what I have planned? So there's a little bit of that in there as well.
So inside of that also, now, what would you say is like your least favorite part about it?
Standing for so goddamn long. Oh my God. The walking backwards really threw me off at first, because I'm dedicated to the shot, but also I have this thing to where I'll always have my hand back behind me as I'm holding my camera, because I'm looking out for the fence post. And then if I trip, I grab onto that post and I still have a good swinging shot of the wrestler walking around. So having that plan B, That's where that comes in line. You know, I don't enjoy walking backwards, especially because some of them love to run at me. They just like, let's go. Like, you can get in the ring right now. It's fine. I'm running backwards here, man. But I don't mind it. It's the standing and the walking backwards. It's kind of a bore ass. It's kind of a bore ass. I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? If that's the worst thing to happen to me, I think I'm doing pretty good.
We haven't had much time to like talk to too many wrestlers to have like bad impressions thrust upon you, as far as like the user nature of some people in the toxic carnies that are in the business. You're not really gonna interact with them very often, because once the light goes on, you're holding the thing that's got the light on it.
Well, yeah, because that's the one of the thing that maybe that, you know, I don't see that toxicity because I'm the guy holding the camera and I'm the guy you want to you want to know where I am, because I'm going to make you better. One of the best compliments I've gotten when I was doing the wrestling videography was they loved how I hung in the ring. I would get in the ring to get that shot. You're pinning them. I'm far away. I'm leaning all the way in, so that way I can get that right spot and that right shot, and it shows with the zooming in as they're getting pinned.
Per Janger and ring hanger.
Hooray! The pop is one of my favorite things. That pop you get from the crowd watching when that person finally wins. They get the 3. There's a couple of times where I have a couple different favorite pops. It was just so electrifying when you feel that crowd let off that tension. It's there's something, you know, scientific we don't understand there in some way, I would say, because it's you can't help but
there's an algorithm to it. Yeah.
You can't help but feel excited when you're in that moment. It doesn't matter if you like wrestling or not. You're there. You're like, all right, when's this going to end? Oh, man, that should have been. The amount of people that yell at the ref. I'm like, man, that's entertaining. Like,
dude, when Alyssa watches wrestling with me, you know the sequences where like there'll be like multiple pins in a row, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. She's like, why do you guys always do that? Like, that's fine. Why do you guys always do that? I'm like, because it makes you stand up. It makes you move.
It was the first match that Jill went to, wrestling wise, and she was just telling me, I forget who it was, but she was like, "Oh, I don't like them." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the point, because they're a heel. Like, you're not supposed to like them. They're supposed to be the bad guy." And you could tell that click in the mind, and you're like, "Oh, they're really good at their job." And you're like, "Yeah, like, you know, they're just good." So it's that type
walking around with a punchable face is it big help?
The personalities, though, especially with the different leagues that I am involved with. SPO, ACPW is coming back. We have AAW, super crazy. O-Dog. There's a bunch of different leagues that I've tied myself to videography wise, which I would have never thought of. But, those gigs, the photography gigs of just going to a town and taking pictures and, people just walking up to you and asking you a question because you're holding a camera. It's that weird interaction in life. But with the wrestling, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm the guy holding the camera, making you look good. So the accolades from the wrestlers, it means a lot. Especially when, I heard like, oh, everybody at AAW knows who Matt and Chris are. I'm like, really? Oh, you guys. That's awesome.
You noticed.
You know what I mean? And then Johnny Cashmere mentioned my book out on his podcast tonight that I saw.
Cool.
Just super awesome. And just the amount of love that I get from the indie comic scene, from the indie wrestling scene, just from just the supporters that I've gotten, and the book and all the ventures that I've done recently have been really. You get the feels at a certain point. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, right. But I try to reel it in, and it's still awesome. No matter how I try to wrap my mind around it. 2 years ago, being in a dead end job at a car dealership I hated, and now to having my own book.
Yeah.
Who knew?
The ebbs and flows and stuff.
So just, I guess the overall message is just, look, do what I did. Just overall try to be a good person. And eventually you may or may not. Don't do it for the good karma. Otherwise you're going to get bad karma. Okay.
I mean, the whole trying to be a good person versus just being a good person. Don't worry about the trying so much, just as much as you just do that.
Okay. All right. I'll settle with that. Yeah, at very least, try to be kind, never fail at being nice, but you always try to be kind. I think that was it. I might have been messing that up. Doctor Who quote, but
who quote is that?
A Doctor Who quote. It was.
I thought you said it was Doctor Evil.
No,
Doctor Evil. Doctor Evil. Yeah, I wrote that. I'm Doctor Evil. Just the two of us.
Yeah. Always try to be nice, but never fail at being kind. You can find a lot of stuff like that in science fiction and your favorite, cartoons and shows and different stuff like that. Just looking at the main protagonist and just how the ebb and flow of the story goes, because a lot of times that's where the writer goes for their inspiration on what they're writing. So experiencing life is the overall thing that you should be trying to, do. Whatever it is you like. If you like charcuterie that shit up, man. You like, making popsicle stick.
I think they're missing out. I think there's fully missing out, and this could be a creative endeavor that could be worth millions. Hear me out. If they had a board with cheese on it, where the board had big like bite marks on it.
Okay.
And each one of the pieces of cheese was shaped like a fish, and we called it a charcuterie board. And the charcuterie board. How does that not exist?
Oh my God. That sounds heavenly. Yeah. I'm so glad to have my mixing board back. I missed you, baby. This thing is such a gift. To have a good sound is very important in podcasting, as well as very important sound deadening. Because you don't hear Fallout 76 happening over there. You just hear my, Barry Metal.
I hear an occasional cough, but
yeah, it'll edit out screams and explosions, but as soon as he coughs once, it's like, ah! Oh, he's still alive, folks. He's still alive. If they're coughing, they're living.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No. Normally, when
not the way you want to figure it out, maybe a hand in front of the face, but that's how you got to figure it out. At least
Mm-hmm. If you're coughing, you're alive. So one of my favorite things about Silly Little Podcast is that I can be absolutely as ridiculous as I want. Okay. Yeah.
And my favorite thing to go to, especially with Mike, because we did it a couple times on podcast, is talk about the Younger Dryas impact theory. Have you heard about this theory?
No, I'm hearing about it for the first time right now.
So about 13,000 years ago, the Earth entered into the Tartarus meteor belt, or we entered into them, however you want to look at it. Giggity. And
indeed, giggity.
For about 1,000 years, and this was at the end of the last ice age. So for about 1,000 years, we just got pelted with meteors.
Mm-hmm.
And the theory is that caused a cataclysmic global flood, wiping out a pre-civilization. We find this tale in almost every single mythology that you look at all around the world.
Is this like Anunnaki and like
It
a
goes
little bit of Atlantis and all that?
Yeah, a little bit of all of that, because you have tales in the Philippines, you have tales in South America, of
Sumerian,
the Sumerians, of Japan, China, of a giant flood, 7 people ish surviving, and then they go around and spread farming, agriculture, architecture, mathematics all around the world. And then you look at ancient Egypt and how Osiris came to them and taught them all that stuff, and then said, hey, I'm going to go teach everyone around the world. And then, he had some different stuff happen after. But, the main important thing is the flood, not ancient Egypt. We went into them a while on Silly Little Podcast. But my favorite thing is that prehistoric civilization, because there are megalithic structures that we can't explain. So a prehistory that we can't, or at least is hard for us to explain. Maybe they went to the highlands and built these megalithic structures, and they're the last things that's, survived. Then people built on top of it. Because that's believable, I think. Which could have been the origins of Atlantis, because it got swallowed up by the sea. You link that up with Plato and how it happened 9,000 years from Plato, which ties into the same time period as the Younger Dryas.
What makes me think of Plato all the time? One time I walked to the bathroom. I walked to the bathroom in my bare feet, and the dog had pooped in the bathroom, and like a Play-Doh fun factory, the turd came up through my toes.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, it's not fun. You just wash your foot off in the in the shower, in the bed, and just they tried. They tried.
You
really hold it against them. Okay.
Real dilemma.
Well, what do you think about an ancient civilization? Do you think it's possible?
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do. Like, I think it feels like the answer to everything is aliens.
Well, I don't even think it's aliens. I think it is a former version of ourselves. They may have found a different technology, a different way of doing technology that we didn't think of. And it got
there. And there's like that
ships or anything like that.
There's like that Tesla, like tapping into the earth and having like
frequencies.
Frequency that sort of like powers everything.
And Tesla said the universe is frequencies, and that's what Terrence Howard. That's another favorite fucking part of that podcast. Jesus Christ, man!
That's becoming a whole thing, huh?
Look, when you look at that stuff and different frequencies, and hey, man, if you can tie it out to elements, they tie a lot of things out to waves and frequencies. That's how literally electronics works. There's audible waves to where it's up and down, analog, and then there's digital, on, off. You get analog waves, and you compare that to anything, especially podcasting, sound, and all that, and you look at everything.
A part of it, and I think I've said it. I probably said it to you, but I know I've said it before on here about how, like, when I had brain scans done on my head, like when I was going through all my stuff, I saw the waves, like I saw frequency, I saw electricity.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, like, that's what God is. And then I think that's the same God that sends the wind through the trees and blows back out oxygen, and you know what I mean, like that.
I got you. Yeah.
That it's all God is frequency and ancient. It's all every breath of air we have that we've taken is all air that's been circulating for generations.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just like
the same way, just the way irrigation, and the water that comes down is the same water. Every drink of water you have is water you've drinking before.
Or at least that a dinosaur is drinking before.
Or drunken. What's the past tense of
dranken?
Having drunken, having
dranked,
having dranked.
Look, I'm pretty sure nobody's looking at us like these are two English scholars.
Hey, you know what? Batman's. Ask Batman's.
We started it off so
the future tense, the past tense, and the plurals.
Well, I'm going out to the Walmarts later.
Yeah.
Why you got to go more than one? We stop at the Best Buys. It's a very long drive because there's not a lot of them out there anymore.
Is there a Best Buy near you?
Springfield. Yeah. We got one out there. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, how about that?
So they're still there. Even Circuit City and what was it, Blockbuster? I think there's still that one last Blockbuster, or they may have closed down. I thought.
Where's that?
It's in we want to take a camping trip state.
It's like New Mexico or something.
It's I don't know. It was like a green environment, which doesn't mean anything these days, but I really forget. They had a whole documentary on it. I think it was Netflix. Might have been somebody else, but
Netflix isn't a place.
But yeah, they did have it on Netflix because it was a documentary on the last Blockbuster. And
I said, "Where was the Blockbuster?" And you Netflix.
Put that in there to hey, Netflix, Blockbuster could have bought them, but they decided to compete. Here's our documentary on them. It was kind of a that's a low blow, but it was a good documentary, honestly.
It's like a little bit of a. I had this bit of I said, I was wondering why the hell libraries still exist. All the world's information, everybody's got it right in their pocket. Everybody can find out all the world's information. Pretty much, all these cars were in the parking lot of the library, and I went in to find out why so many people were at the library. Nobody was reading the books. Everybody was waiting in lines to use the computers to get on the internet inside the library. And I'm like, getting on the internet inside the library, you're using the thing that made this place obsolete inside this place. That's like going to my current girlfriend's house, holding hands with my side piece and being like, hey, you mind if we make out in your living room real quick?
That's great.
like Netflix releasing a documentary about Blockbuster. That's the most Huck 2 spit right in their face.
Oh, man, that girl's probably going to feel bad about that. But no, you know what Chris told me? She actually used all this money she's getting from that. She started a fucking cancer charity. I'm all right, Huck 2 all over that shit, man. You got other charities you can help out. Suck it up, soldier.
Help out a charity or Huck 2.
Huck 2, chop, chop. Oh, man. Don't ever shy away from the joke. And that's what I never have to worry about with you. That's what I love. You never have to shy away from the joke. Just go right in there, man.
I'm never gonna be filtered. There's gonna be, well, I mean, of course there's the appropriate filters, but if there's an opportunity to get one of those signature chuckles out of you, I'm gonna try to take it.
Yeah, you got to go for the opportunity. It's like, when you're a fighter and you see a wide open gap, you're like, boom, you got to take it. Yeah. It's that pinpoint accuracy that you get from, especially just trying to make people laugh in general will give you a good sense of it. But stand up and just naturally being funny are two separate things. And that's honestly what kept me away from that, because I would have to write something. And the only way to know that's good is to just go eat shit.
Dude, we gotta work on some material together.
Okay.
Do you have like? Let's sit down after we're done recording and kind of talk it out. I feel like it would only kind of make sense for us to maybe just hang out one of these days and sit down with a pad and a pen in our big imaginations, and
we could
and map out like all the last like 30 days. What were like your last big laughs that you got for stuff that you've said? Or like,
man.
Those kind of mapping things out is what I mean.
I'm more of a opportunity laugh guy. You know, I'm a guy that, like, Jill learned this quickly. If she says something, like, if you say something, I'm going after you. If there is a joke in something you said, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a ridiculous premise and going off of that as an improv character. It's just a weird kind of amalgamation because I'm also a storyteller.
So just on that premise, like even mishearing stuff, like for me, like I recently heard somebody with a very thick Southern accent trying to talk about seeing a Civil War reenactment, and the accent was so thick it sounded like they said a silverware reenactment. And I was like, "This."
It's a lot less eventful.
All right, no more Mr. Knife Guy. You better forget about the surviving this. And
that was good. No more Mr. Knife Guy. The Silverware War is something that definitely needs to be reenacted, at least in a comic strip. Released on social media, in some form of regular frequency. I would say
the hottest commodity of them all, the hottest commodity of all, the most eligible spatula.
I see a whole line of just funny spoof videos online for you, to where you just have just some brilliant text. The most elegant new reality show. Lots of sparkly glitter going through there, and then the most eligible spatula.
Dude, I said if they made a reality show about cooks, like all, like, if they took like Master Chef and they mixed it with like The Bachelor, and they gave out spatulas that were shaped like roses, and they gave those out, and
it'd be very impractical.
And the spatulette.
They'd be very impractical spatulas, though, if they were shaped like roses. I mean, like,
Roses,
it's like
really
a spatula that's just shaped like Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man for when you make those kind of pancakes. My Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man spatula.
Do you have one of those?
I'm sure Etsy has one available. They have everything. They have a dog Link tunic. Like Link from Legend of Zelda, they have a tunic that you can put on your dog with a little Master Shield and, Master Sword. Etsy has everything.
Excuse me, princess. That was in the intro or the commercials or something for that cartoon. I remember. I still remember it from when I was a child.
Yes.
It was around the time. Do you remember the cartoon Bonkers? There's like a cat who was like a cop or something.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm thinking that time frame. I don't remember anything about Bonkers, but I remember like the theme song that begun the show. I don't remember any
song only.
I remember the theme song. Yeah.
Okay. It must have been a hell of a theme song. I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to do it any justice, but it was something like it's going to be bonkers. It's going to be bonkers.
It was a Saturday morning cartoon, so they didn't actually have to put so much funding really into that sound.
It might have been around the time where Goof Troop was a thing.
Goof Troop was the best. Okay, I love
maybe Tailspin.
Tailspin. Oh shit, man.
I've been told that
Tails.
Baloo is my spirit animal. People can say that I have real Baloo energy.
Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
You just go for those bare necessities.
Mm-hmm. Simple
Those
bare necessities.
very simple.
Algorithm and Baloos.
That's great. That's great. The rhythm and blues.
Yeah.
It's not an ultimate king of corny competition, but I think it would be a good bout. It would be a good bout.
Yeah, probably.
Just
In this corner.
a corn off? That sounds way too wrong. That sounds like
no. I was not trying to imply corn off was the thing, but that was something you just said.
Look, I mean, sometimes you make regrets instantly with podcasting. Sometimes it takes years and years. You know, sometimes say the wrong thing, and corn happened.
I've been on some pretty popular podcasts, and on a podcast once, a pretty famous comedian and podcaster gave me the nickname the Pundertaker.
The Pundertaker. That is a good one. I'm not gonna lie, that's a great name. The Pundertaker. Yeah. It's so good.
Sharp.
So
I'll take it.
Outside of wrestling, I think an immediate in for a lot of wrestlers that maybe somebody in the industry, each industry isn't realizing, but an easy in would be acting. And I heard from a birdie, you do a little.
I do a little, yeah. Here and there. Here and there, yeah.
You find it's the same kind of passion. Well, not passion, but the same kind of skill set, I would say, that goes between being an actor and putting on that face for the wrestling event.
Well, there is an emotion, and there is a performance. There is a little bit of that the gratification, like, you know, like with and I think it goes with comedy too. It's like I work for the pop. The pop is my drug.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, even it goes back to, like, I say, like, the early 2000s for me were full of like unprotected chair shots and concussions a lot, but the pops that came out of those were addicting.
Yeah, man, I can tell where that would really get addicting. You get that adrenaline buzz in there after a really good match. I mean,
no, I mean,
I get it. Yeah, that's
sure. We didn't know as much as we know now about brain damage and concussions and stuff.
Yeah, no, we didn't know about that CTE.
Didn't know about the CTE.
Yeah, no. Whew. That's why past podcasts don't always age well. You'd probably find me one of them with me saying, them fucking this football players pussies don't even hit each other anymore. And I'm like, no, it's probably good now. They don't. You know, in CTE, you're just scrambling that brain around for America.
Yeah. I mean,
it's America's pastime.
I thought that was baseball. Concussions are a form of
concussion. You could die if those guys are both looking at that ball. You ever seen those videos? Those two people running full force into each other. That's a scary scenario right there when you see those people hit, because both those people
if you see that footage, it'll kind of scare you from, like, keeping your eye off of being aware of what's in front of you. that footage, it's concussionary tale.
This is sometimes that's why it's helpful to have the button to laugh for me. that was a very concussionary tale. I will agree. Oh, that's great stuff. But what's one thing outside of that? Like, what kind of a book would Cory Kastle write? Is
What
it
kind of
fiction? Is it a biopic? Or are you
autobiography? Yeah,
Are you
I would make an autobiography for sure.
are you going kids books, fiction? Sci-fi? What would you want to do?
I kind of would like to do like a kind of like a coaching manual sort of thing, like sort of
good at that.
Like, yeah, I think that'd be the kind of a thing that I would get into.
I don't want to say life coach, but something like kind of like that would help somebody.
Like a motivational coach. Yeah. I could see me doing that.
I could totally see you doing that. Because you do have the right kind of advice, obviously. We started this podcast out with that. I mentioned it.
What would you say if you had to give me advice on anything? What would you say it would be?
I would say that
get better looking.
No, you don't need to do that in today's day and age. They have apps and filters, and AI is like shortly behind. You don't have to worry about that, sweetie. Honestly, I don't know if there's any kind of solid advice for the right now, because with stand-up, I've heard so much on different podcasts, because I do follow a lot of stand-up comedians. You find that a stand-up comedian with split devotions, it doesn't put their full effort into one or the other.
Yeah. I've read that many dude, I'm as much as I'm a fan of pro wrestling, my fandom of stand-up comedy is pretty it's like right near each other. They're like this close to each other. So when it comes to watching documentaries about stand-up comedy, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with the inner workings of stand-up comedy. I'm obsessed with like knowing what these people are really like. So a lot of them have been like, oh, you can't be spinning too many plates outside of this main plate that you want to spin. I get that. But like also there's circumstances. There's different
because I want you, my advice would be to not, it would be to put attention into stand-up comedy, because I genuinely think you're funny. And I think the more you're on stage, the more you're going to work out a stand-up comedy style that people can't help but fall in love with. But I also see the potential of your wrestling. So it's that.
That's what I'm saying. The extenuating circumstances, because I'm a this sounds all humility. I want to say I am a massive talent.
You are,
and a performer, and that's I just declarative statements anyone's making about themselves. I'm cautious about. I'm cautious about, like I'm not going to come out here and say I'm funny and I'm smart, and then I'll let like 15-20 minutes go by and I haven't said anything that's funny or smart, and then you'll be like, this guy's not only is he not funny and not smart, but he's also a liar. He declared this thing about himself. He's a fucking liar. So I want to stay all humility, but really do your own research. If you want to see performances that I've done, if you want to watch matches I've had, if you want to see comedy that I've done, you can seek it out. I'm not speaking out of school on being aware that what I do takes talent.
Yeah.
And so I'm gifted with the talent to be a very entertaining wrestler,
Yes.
as well as being a good comedian. Now, I have not wanted to mix those two worlds together very often. So as like I don't want to be a funny wrestler. Like my point of me wanting to be I want to be a comedian separately than I want to be a wrestler. I want those things to be separate.
Yes.
And so when you said that I was a funny wrestler, I was like, oh, what are you doing? Man?
Well, it
So
was that instance, but your wrestling itself is its own kind of art style with wrestling. It is that professional level.
Right.
It's just I can't help but think that some of that funny does exude out, but it only adds to your character.
Well,
It makes
it's definitely a part of like selling to the cheap seats, and if that's funny to the cheap seats, then it's funny to everybody. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
it's that like project the performing.
Yes, it adds to it because you're thinking of everyone in the room. And that shows when you put that level of effort to doing something that you do, that you're thinking of everybody involved that may be looking at this one thing. And maybe nobody notices it. I got 10 years of that. Just doing something like, somebody's going to notice. Nobody notices. It's fine.
Yeah, dude, I say that, and I'm totally trying to cut down on saying this because I don't want the universe to be listening in at the wrong time when I say that my podcast, to me, in the past, has felt like a tree falling in the woods, and no one knows whether it makes a sound or not because no one's there to listen to it.
Yes, I've had that same feeling.
Right. And it's like this is the part of me talking about how everyone goes, yeah, everybody's got a podcast, and that's what talks people out of doing it. Everyone's got a podcast. The thing is, people start a podcast and they don't get the immediate results that they want, so they stop doing it. So when there is, that people go, oh, there's millions is a podcast, millions is.
We are literally
nailing the plurals today.
Literal scholars. All right.
Little.
We're amazing miming.
Amazing. Athletes. Professional athlete.
But there is that level to it, man. You have to have fun with whatever you're doing.
So when we're talking about the millions of podcasts that there are out there, how many of them have more than 12 episodes because people didn't get the immediate results and maybe gave up at 4 episodes, maybe gave up at 2 episodes, maybe gave up at 1 episode. They're like, then we go, oh, it's impossible. You know what's impossible? It's impossible to blow up as a podcaster if you never start it.
Yeah, man. But here's my number one advice into podcasting is if you're trying to do this for money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. 100%. You're doing it for the wrong reason. It is nice to have that dream bubble of this could be my monetization float. And man, I could just do this. I won't have to worry about work anymore. I could just hop off in dreamland. It's very nice to think that. But after over a decade in podcasting and content creation, I can tell you I have not gotten my own first book because I was looking for money. I worked for a lot of assholes. I worked for a lot of people that I wasn't even 100% morally 100% aligned with their viewpoints. I've worked at businesses essentially, and I've had my own dream, and I've worked at it. I've worked and tried to learn. That's the most important thing. I go on to Google. I say, how can I do this when I have an idea for a shot? I look at trying to make myself better because it makes me feel better when I put out a good product and somebody says, hey, man, I saw your podcast. That was really great. Wow, you're the guy. You're the guy that, the one view. Hey,
Photographer the Explorer.
He's over here. Explored already. Found. The one guy. Hey, He's there, you know? And now multiple people like, oh, you know, oh, I've seen that podcast. Yeah. It's the comments, the accolades. That is something that it's nice being a decade in, but you know that saying 10,000 hours.
Well, it's part of like also it made me think when we were talking about it was I was thinking of Wayne's World.
Yes.
When he said kids can spot a phony, kids can spot a phony. And then the guy's like, kids don't know dick. I see them inside the arcade just pumping quarters in. It's like, and then it started making me think of come bust a move where the games are played. It's hip, it's fresh, it's Noah's Arcade.
A silly little podcast in and of its own right, I will say.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the best part, man, is having fun. And that's where Projangers started, you know, going on 6 years ago in November. It started with Chris and I taking his car to drop off and get fixed. It was like 40 minutes away, and we made a podcast of it. And then after that, we kept podcasting week after week for like 4 years. We kept.
Did you podcast while driving?
Podcasting while driving. We had.
Does that drive you nuts to hear the oh, you have the Tascam one? Okay.
Yeah, it's the Tascam DR40, and I still use it to this day for different functionality purposes. And it was me and him with that Tascam for a lot of podcasts in the beginning. And on our Spotify, goes all the way back to podcast 1 before me. I started at podcast 9. Podcast 8 was him selling me the podcast idea because he went and did a podcast at his daughter's career day. And all these kids were talking about anime. And I was like, oh my God, these kids have some really good opinions. And then my brother and I moved into this house, and Chris kept coming over because he lived like a block away. And that's how Projangers and Wall Hangers started, was with
kids don't know dick.
They don't. But the weird part is, as we were going through, it was like a year into podcasting, maybe a year and a half into podcasting. These neighborhood girls, I'm walking Link out back, and they, in like unison, like, all right, ready? Hey, do you have a podcast? And I'm thinking these are like little girls, and I have my podcast listed for like 18 and above. And I'm like, how do you know I have a podcast? So I try to ignore them, but then they say it, they keep saying it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I'm just like, what was that? What was that? But Link's excited for it. Yeah, no, but it's just the long journey that I've been on, and now going to the first live podcast for Lugnuts, going on Thursday at the bank, and then everything else in the future that's going to come out from all these good tidings. I'm super excited, and I'm going to keep involving my friends and as much as I can. Former podcast guest, you've all turned friends. It's that kind of thing with podcasting. We all keep linking up together, and we all keep building each other up, and it's not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep thinking of, all right, we need to get this done. Which one of my friends can help me get this done? And I'm going to go to them and say, hey man, come on, let's go. You come or you don't, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to do what I think I know you love, and help bring you with me. Because that's what I would have want somebody to do for me. I would have want somebody to say, hey, young buck, come here.
Be a homie. Yeah.
I can be that mentor to people. I can help them find a journey that is less treacherous than the one that I've pathed, especially as finding out, no, you're not crazy. You're just a creative person. You don't fit in the box. You're a Pentagon. They only have squares and
box for losers.
You know what I mean?
Every other dork's in the box. Who needs that?
I mean, some people will find that job. Oh no, I was meant to be a doctor. I was meant to be a lawyer. I was meant to be an accountant. You will find those people that just, no, this was not what I was meant to do. Creative people don't always see it that way. You know, like
any job that I've ever had
to do this.
I've always been an outsider. Like I've been working regular full-time jobs for a very long time, all while continuing to have my passions be, pro wrestling and comedy and podcasts.
Yeah.
But like I've never been somebody who like is the ideal employee. Like I've always had a problem with respect and not feeling like I've been given, and so I don't give it back.
Yeah.
And it's a long time issue with me.
Even on my best jobs, I've had a level of, I was excited that I was employed and I was getting money, and then I was getting used to the job, and then my passion would die down, and then all of a sudden all of them say the same thing, like, hey man, at a certain point you just like, it's like you stop caring. And
I've never heard that because I never started caring.
I started, and then I'm like, yeah, this is just not working out. And I tried to, you try. And I think that's the most important way in how you find your way, because if you don't try, you won't know what you don't want to do. I've had a lot of jobs that taught me what I don't want to do. And that's where I've gotten here now, because now I've had enough people say, hey, you can't be modest. I've seen your work. So I made a book. Please buy it. It's on Amazon. Picture Perfect Small Towns, York and Media, PA.
I'll include it in the link in the description.
But it's that kind of passion that got me here. It's your kind, and I see that passion. It drives people like us to our dreams, because we know I'm not going to be happy over there. I mean, you've found, that love of your life, and I'm so excited for you and all of your future together, because just from the podcast I heard with you two, I think I knew within like the first 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, these two were perfect together. 100%. It doesn't take me long. And I really do wish both of your continued happiness, because I think you both deserve it.
I appreciate that. Appreciate it very much.
Because you do, man. Both you do. Especially because you both had rough goes of it. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're the only people, but to have two people have that happy love story, it makes other people happy, because it shows them it is possible. And
dude, I get psyched about us. I get psyched about our future, as far as like Alyssa and I, and our growth that we kind of hold space for each other to have. And it's something that I've always wanted, and I feel like everybody's always wanted that, and I'm very, very lucky, very privileged to have. And I can't wait to see where it leads to.
Well, what makes it is that you're both talented individuals that have your own individual passion that want to make
she's incredibly talented. Yes,
I know. Jillian was filling me in. I can't, and that's what also clicked. I was like, well, that's why. They're both brilliant. They're both brilliantly talented people. And that's why you hope the best for people. You hope the best, and you think, you know what, these two crazy kids are gonna make it in this crazy world. That old adage, I like that out of your jib.
Yeah. I don't get that phrase really What is the jib? What is that?
It's like
And how it
it's like the cut of they like the you know
has
presents.
to do with my
Jib. It's probably something with hair. I'm not.
uh
It has to be something with hair. You know.
hey, your jib's pretty messy. You got a real messy looking jib over there.
You know. I mean, hey, you got a nice looking jib over there. I like the cut of your jib.
My jib's pretty messy.
Just two guys with goatees talking, hanging out. It's fine.
Audio time travel.
Okay.
People who love you the very most are going to stumble across this recording in 2044. The words that you're saying to those people who care the most about you in messages that timestamp in this very moment, in this time frame, what are you saying to them?
It's a very good. It's a very good question. If I were going to talk to them and have this as a timestamp, I would say that I feel so incredibly lucky to have so many of you believe in me right now when it means the most. When I started gambling on myself and believing in myself and having all of you push me behind me. The idea of that future self of mine, having these people still behind me, is he's gonna be long dead, but Doodle, you know, he's probably still gonna be barking on the other side. It's gonna be like a ghost phantom bark by then.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, he's always had a bark. I don't know where it came from. It'll actually be a button that I hit. Just Doodle bark.
Mm-hmm.
That's also, yeah. I'm not gonna tell any of you because you're all busy right now. So you're gonna find out right now. Or when you watch this originally. All right, so that one wasn't so planned out, but overall, I would tell them that yeah, it is their support that got me to where I'm going to be in the future because that's how I had the confidence to believe in myself and gamble on myself like I am right now.
Perfect. Perfect. I want to say to you on the record now, I'm still as I was last time we did this. I'm psyched to be on your team and have your back. And please don't hesitate to call me for a resource. Don't ever feel like you're alone and have no friends. If you want to call me, if you want to talk to me about anything, I've got a good listening ear and a good crying shoulder.
You're one of the most important friends that I've picked up in podcasting since, you know, before this recent boom. You know, before I got all these amazing friends from the Tales of the Hunted, you were the one that said, "Hey man, yes, let's do a podcast." And I will never forget that. Cory, you are always going to be one of my most cherished friends.
Yes. just a few more things, and I'll send you off into the sunset with a hot dog and a handshake. So, I think I asked you this last time, but I'll ask you again. What's one question out of all the podcasts that you've done that you've never been asked that you wished that someone had asked you?
Remember my answer from last time?
You do?
Which was why? Why do you do this? I remember that. It's a very good question. Because out of all the podcasts, haven't been asked a lot of questions, honestly. So, that kind of leads the barn door wide open. But it would be, who inspired you to become the person you are? And
Who
it,
did inspire you to become the person you are?
well, it's the immediate people that you have as a child growing up, idolizing your father. My father was a huge part in my childhood. We went through, and I was in Boy Scouts. We were always camping and, going on adventures together. And I got to see this fun side to my dad outside of this, fatherly figure who's trying to keep me in line. And he and my mom obviously are the biggest ones because they never stifled my creativity. They always knew I was just this creative, wacky, jokester kind of guy. And, when you talk to me, yeah, I very much am. I do have a little bit of professionalism in my voice when I podcast now, but I never want to lose that, and that person that I was when I was young is probably one of the biggest influences on me now. That young, uncorrupted, wacky version of yourself that's just allowed to be wild, be funny, and just be alive. That early version of myself is probably one of the biggest influences. And then you have the external media of your favorite cartoons, your favorite anime, the characters that say, no, I'm not going to change who I am. And I'm going to be the main character or protagonist of this. And I'm going to continue to be me. I'm going to evolve myself, but I'm not going to be who you think I am. I'm going to keep this good ideal of helping people. And, it's kind of that anti capitalism message, but that character who, the famous one of the famous tropes in animes is your main character to not have any powers. Everybody else in the world has powers, but that person has the drive and determination that they're never going to give up. They know they're going to be that next big thing. That is also a big motivator, because especially when you hear these, scripted tales of these people going through and they have this, real touching moment, and you're going through something in your life, then you're like, damn, that actually really made me think. And you got to go back and rewatch the anime episode, because that one line just really rocked your world and made you reconsider something that you were completely wrong in. So taking fictional characters and stories and taking the lessons from them to guide your own way forward has also been an inspiration for me in a way, because I am a storyteller. I'm being able to say the message that you need to say, and using a character like you say, Captain America. One of my favorite Captain America quotes was, even if the mob, the world and the press say that you're wrong, you plant yourself by the riverside of truth like a tree and say, no, you move. That kind of mentality of where you didn't think of, like, damn, even if everybody else is telling me I'm wrong, you're doing a silly little podcast. Nobody cares about your silly little podcast. And now my silly little podcast is going to be going live at a bar, at, a couple bars and a car show, at a mall. I got a book.
We could do a nationwide tour
Yeah,
of live broadcasts.
Doubt you. That is the most important thing. That is the most inspiring thing. You have to have those people say, you can't do it.
Right.
Because without
these sellout crowds say otherwise.
And you're just like, oh, I can't do this because you feel you can't do this.
Right. This is your fear. your fear working itself towards me and limiting me.
Exactly.
You're content with your life, and you're putting me under your little content.
Yeah.
And I want to break out of it.
There you break out of the content.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. But that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Knowledge. Yes. Those people who don't like you, they don't like you for a reason. It's probably not you. Yeah, they may not like what you did, but the reason why they are hating on you is not your fault. Like I said probably before, the person you met yesterday, today, earlier, they're just one big ball of trauma that somebody else they just left on your doorstep.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say
through the door and
I don't have the numbers or the stats to back this up, but a humongous portion of our society are unworked on people. People don't work on their shit. Like whatever traumatized them is pushed down, and it finds itself.
The branding comes out then because they let it define them. Now they're a Coke bottle of the trauma that happened to them.
And then they've identified with their trauma. They remain a victim to that trauma and don't identify it. Instead of identifying it, they identify with it.
Yes. It's just you are the person that defines that. You don't have to let what happened to you define who you are.
I would say don't waste these right nows on right nows you'll never get back.
Okay. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yes, we have too many. Yeah. We have too many right nows to waste on the right nows we'll never get back.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Who would you say your current inspirations are? Who do you see doing something in the world? You go, I could do that, but like with my twist to it. Who do you see in that for you?
No one. For what I do, because it's so segmented, I do so much because a jack of all trades, master of none is often better than a master of one. Like even today, outside of the fictionals, there's a lot of people that do inspire me, but oftentimes what I've found is looking back on the wiser words from people who have gone, like Dostoevsky and Mark Twain and Hemingway and a whole bunch of classic literary people who not. I mean, you don't want to listen to all their their points on life. Like Hemingway was a big drug addict and alcoholic. I mean, you take the words and
don't listen to the first name of the guy in Mark Twain's books whose last name is Joe.
This is a different time. Remember the English teacher telling you that? Like, look, going over Huckleberry Finn.
Times they are a Twainin'.
It was a different time back then. Gonna snicker.
Snickers bar. Hungry, why wait?
Oh, man. But honestly, man, I mean, inspiration is just something that you can draw from anywhere, and especially like from just the from the photographs that I've been taking. I don't take a picture unless I feel inspired. So like I'll be walking and Jill has learned to stop when I kind of slow up because she could see like, oh, she sees the gears turning and I'm looking at the shot and I'm like, I got it. And I take the shot. So I don't take a picture unless I feel inspired.
How many lenses do you have? You're switching out your lenses.
But right now I only have two. I have my main lens and then I have a telephoto lens. I want to get a wide eye and a bunch of other ones. But for the main stuff that I do with my editing program at Canva, a lot of it is just it's cropping and then adjusting minor things, highlights, saturation tones, what the white colors, black colors, the shadows, the brightness, the vibrancy, the saturation, to craft it how you want it to look, to where some of the pictures in the book, I went with a devoid of saturation, which is a black and white theme to the shot. And it is because, you know what, the shot, and once you're in the editing software, I had that inspiration for the shot. All right, well, now I'm getting in editing software, I'm playing around with all the tones, and then one of them inspires me from what I'm seeing on the page to like almost like a notification bell. There we go. That's it. So
those memes where where those memes where it's like a big picture and then like it like crops like on one part you weren't looking at when you looked at the whole picture.
Yep.
I pictured that when you said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about like having a whole book full of those memes. That could be.
I mean, you just need at least 79 pages. So, that
you could call it crop till you drop.
Oh my God, I love that. We'll work on that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work on that. Our own crop till you drop book. It'll be like a 79, 80 page book. I can't see if Jill's rolling her eyes yet, but we'll make it happen. Crop till you drop. And it'll be a complete meme book that I think everybody will love.
In your let's say hypothetically, I've gifted you this show. This is the first episode of your new podcast. I know you already host many a podcast, but now I've hypothetically gifted you this one. Okay. Your first episode of Evolving with Matt, in your very best Jerry Springer's final thought type of way, the most valuable takeaways, and wrap this up in a way that can send people home inspired to be a better version of themselves. What are you telling them?
Wall jangers. It's what I call you. You're Projangers and Wall Hangers fans. So wall jangers. We just mix that together.
Mark Walljangers.
I love it.
Mark
Walljangers. It's very easy to get trapped up in your day-to-day machinations that you lose sight of that dream that your younger self may have had. You think, I have kids, I have a wife, I got a mortgage, bills, I'm behind on this, I'm in a dead-end job, I have this or that going on. Once you get past that excuse and learn what it is your true passion is, whether it be for cooking, for charity, for promotions, for, wrestling, for podcasting, once you find that dream and you start investing in it, you will be more happy than you ever have been in your entire life. Because nobody should look at you and tell you your dream is dumb, stupid, it's already been done, because guess what? Nobody has done it like you have.
That's perfect. Did you do any impressions?
None good. None good.
What ones do you do that aren't good?
I mean, I used to make fun of people, that was the first kind of self-defense mechanism that I had, is that I would make fun of their voice. So, we had the manager, this one detail shop, he would always talk like this. Hey, Matty, go over to the gas station, give me the silver Red Bulls, okay?
Dude, that's exactly, sounds like there's a character that my friend who's a wrestler, Ben Bishop, Big Trouble Ben Bishop, he does it. He does this character where he plays like a scumbag promoter, and he does that exact voice. He's like, "Hey, the house is a little light. House is a little light." And then he shows him like running off with the envelopes.
Well, you know what? Now that I think
voice.
about it, though, I can't really tell you that I don't have an impression, because when I was in 8th grade, my brother and I acted like stoners, and we called up a local radio station, WMMR 93.3, and we would call in to Raz on the radio during the 420 Music Marathon, and we would act like two stoner brothers.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we got to the point to where we would go into the studio and we would do different bits with Raz, and Chuck and Charlie Stoney were born, you know, and we had our first bit to where we got so high that I lost my feet. And we also got nominated for we were trying to go to Canada and we ended up in Mexico. That was a bad time.
It sounds to me like you could probably do a good Doug Stanhope impression.
Well, I don't know. It's been a while since I got to hear him.
But I mean, that impression sounds a lot like Doug Stanhope's voice, is what I'm saying.
Well, I showed Jill a Kickstarter video I'm working on for Frank Percy, Kariba the Hunted, and I voice the alien in the alien. It's called the Queese Curse, but I voiced the aliens in that, and it was supposed to be dry and raspy and almost mummified and very hard to. So, you know, being able to adapt my voice. I had the podcast with Marion Toro, who was a voice actress, and we were going all in on techniques, man. That's a really great podcast that we did. But being able to control your voice, especially on a microphone, it's a talent that not a lot of people can do, that mimicry in their voice, you know?
Yeah. So the brothers, what are their names again?
Chuck and Charlie Stoney.
But they're brothers and they're both named Chuck. They're both
Charles.
Charles and Charles.
Yeah, that's kind of the joke. You know, they're Chuck and Charlie. You know.
Hey, I'm Charles. Meet my brother, Chuck.
yeah. Oh, Chuck, how are you?
Hey. So, in whichever one you were, Charles or Charles.
I was Chuck. Chuck.
Okay.
Chuck. I went by Chuck.
Okay. In your best Chuck, the way that we send this home is we say, be fun, have safe, keep evolving. You could say that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Be fun, have safe, and keep evolving.
Yeah. Everybody, if this is your first time checking out the show, like and subscribe and comment below so we know that you exist. Yes. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to everybody else. If they deserve it. Be fun, have safe, keep evolving. Show's over.
Importantly, game on!